1. Before we dive into one of the most remarkable stories in Hollywood history, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of these untold stories from the world of entertainment. Today, we explore the life of a woman whose laughter became a refuge for millions, a woman who shaped comedy like no one else. Carol Burnett spent decades in front of cameras, taking personal pain and transforming it into joy for others, yet there was a single episode that changed everything. It wasn't the comedy, the jokes, or even the celebrity. It was raw, unguarded, and it left an impression so deep that Carol promised herself she would never watch it again. Understanding why she made that decision means going back to the very beginning, to a childhood marked by loss, instability, and the kind of survival that teaches a person more about human fragility than happiness. From her early days in Texas to the pressures of national television, this story is as much about resilience as it is about laughter, and it will give you a perspective on what it truly means to entertain while protecting oneself. 2. Carol Burnett was born in San Antonio, Texas, into a household where chaos and addiction were constant companions. Her father drifted between jobs, never quite steady, while her mother wrestled with unfulfilled dreams and personal struggles. Both parents would later succumb to alcohol-related illnesses, leaving Carol with a wound that many children of addiction carry through their lives: the knowledge that love is unreliable and safety is fragile. As a toddler, she learned that silence could be frightening and invisibility could feel protective. When adults disappeared even while standing before her, Carol understood early on that the world could not be trusted to provide comfort. This formative experience shaped the person she would become, one who instinctively sought control over her environment while finding ways to survive emotionally. When her parents finally relinquished responsibility, Carol's maternal grandmother, Mabel White, took her in, and the two moved to Hollywood, not in search of glamour, but simply for survival. In a cramped, run-down boarding house, surrounded by people barely holding themselves together, young Carol learned lessons about resilience, humanity, and the small, often unnoticed acts of kindness that would echo throughout her life. 3. Despite poverty and uncertainty, Carol discovered safety for the first time with her grandmother, and within that fragile stability, something remarkable began to grow: her sense of humor and imagination. To cope with the unpredictable adults around her, she invented an imaginary twin sister named Karen. Karen was confident, happy, and charming, a stark contrast to Carol's cautious, observant self. Through this creation, she learned the first lesson of performance: joy can protect, even if it's only temporary. Carol would change clothes and reappear as Karen, convincing adults of this other girl's existence. It was more than play, it was survival. Humor became a tool for controlling her environment, a mechanism to distract both herself and others from the harsh realities of her life. Alongside this, she found escape in the small pleasures she could afford, like Saturday trips to the movie theater with her grandmother, where she first discovered the magic of cinema. Watching actors on screen, hearing Johnny Weissmuller's iconic Tarzan yell, Carol began mimicking those sounds obsessively, unknowingly training the voice and timing that would one day captivate millions on television. In this way, humor and performance became her lifeline, a blend of instinct, imagination, and the necessity of protecting herself from life's unpredictable cruelty. 4. As Carol approached adulthood, her ambitions collided with financial reality. She dreamed of attending UCLA as a journalism major, partly to honor her mother's unfulfilled aspirations as a writer. Yet the cost of tuition proved nearly impossible, a $50 fee that seemed insurmountable to someone who had spent her childhood scraping by. For Carol, this was history repeating itself. Talent alone could not protect her from life's limitations. Then a stranger quietly intervened, paying the exact amount she needed. There were no conditions, no explanations, no fanfare, just help arriving when it was most needed. That single act left a lasting impression, teaching Carol that kindness could appear without warning and without strings attached. Once at UCLA, her path shifted again in a theater class that awakened something she had rarely felt: visibility without fear. For the first time, Carol experienced being fully herself, not the poor child from a boarding house, not the girl who learned to hide, but a confident, funny, alive woman. Her instincts had always guided her toward performance as a survival mechanism, and now they became her professional compass. Switching majors was risky, yet it confirmed that humor and emotional intelligence could become her craft and her career. 5. Carol's journey into performance was shaped not only by her talent, but also by discipline. While her peers might have relied solely on natural ability, Carol understood that mastery came from structure, repetition, and careful control over the emotions she revealed. Even in her early work on stage and television, she approached comedy as a precise instrument, knowing when to reveal vulnerability and when to conceal it. While working as an usherette in San Diego, she attended a party and discreetly brought home hors d'oeuvres for her grandmother, an act that highlighted her constant empathy and awareness of others. It was at this gathering that she met a wealthy shipbuilder who, without ever revealing his name, gave Carol and her boyfriend the money to pursue a dream in New York. His conditions were strict: use the money only for their journey, succeed without revealing him, and pay the kindness forward. This moment reinforced a recurring theme in Carol's life. Opportunity often arrived quietly, through small, unexpected acts, and sometimes the responsibility that followed was just as important as the gift itself. 6. By the time Carol Burnett reached national television, she had mastered a level of emotional control few performers could claim. Success on Broadway and early television didn't just reflect talent, it was the product of discipline honed through years of necessity. On the set of The Carol Burnett Show, she created an ecosystem where humor, timing, and emotional precision coexisted. Colleagues like Harvey Korman, Vicki Lawrence, and Tim Conway became more than performers. They were collaborators in a carefully balanced system that allowed chaos to exist safely. Every sketch, every improvisation, and every joke was orchestrated to feel spontaneous while remaining contained. Carol's ability to manage this duality reflected her survival instincts, refined since childhood. Her performances became more than entertainment. They became a lesson in how to wield vulnerability with precision. Yet, even amid the laughter and applause, some sketches carried an emotional weight beneath the surface, subtle signals that not all joy could mask the scars she carried. These moments of careful exposure were precursors to the episode that would ultimately test Carol in ways no audience could imagine. 7. Among the sketches that carried emotional undertones, her recurring family series stood out. Carol's character, Eunice Higgins, was far from glamorous. She was bitter, frustrated, and painfully aware of life's disappointments. Audiences laughed at the exaggeration, but behind the comedy lay a deep resonance. For Carol, Eunice became a conduit through which she explored aspects of herself that could not be expressed openly. This tension, the delicate line between comedy and truth, reached a peak in March 1977 during an episode that would forever remain untouched in her personal viewing history. On the surface, it seemed like another installment of a beloved show. In reality, it was a performance that left her completely exposed. There was no buffer, no protective exaggeration, just raw human emotion displayed on national television. The episode became a turning point, highlighting the cost of blending personal pain with public entertainment, a cost Carol was uniquely aware of. 8. On that fateful night, Carol performed Eunice not as a caricature, but as a fully realized human being confronting humiliation and hope. The sketch depicted Eunice chasing a long-denied dream through a talent competition, but the portrayal lacked the usual comedic armor. When the judges mocked her character's voice, appearance, and aspirations, Carol allowed it to land fully, without any comic relief. The studio audience experienced an awkward, uncomfortable silence, unsure how to react. Crew members later admitted to being on the verge of tears. For the first time, laughter was not the release. It was replaced by raw emotion. This choice, deliberate and irreversible, demonstrated Carol's understanding of the dangerous power of truth in performance. While critics praised the episode as groundbreaking, for Carol it was profoundly personal. The applause did not heal her, and the recognition did not alleviate the exposure she had allowed herself to experience. The emotional cost was real, and the memory would remain untouchable for decades. 9. What made the experience unbearable was timing. Carol's life outside the studio was already unstable. Her marriage to Joe Hamilton, once a collaborative partnership fueling her career, was disintegrating under stress and exhaustion. Simultaneously, her daughter Carrie's addiction escalated, creating cycles of fear and guilt that Carol could neither control nor escape. For someone who had built a life on discipline and emotional management, the episode revealed a painful truth. Some pain cannot be controlled or reshaped, even by the most skilled performer. The sketch exposed the limits of resilience and demonstrated that no amount of humor could shield one from certain realities. Carol's decision to never watch the episode again was not avoidance. It was an acknowledgement of the power of raw, unguarded truth. Some experiences, she knew, are meant to exist only in memory, unvisited but deeply understood. 10. In the years following, life continued to challenge Carol's strength. Her divorce was finalized, and Carrie's addiction led to repeated cycles of rehab, relapse, and estrangement. Carol faced one of the most excruciating responsibilities a parent can endure, loving someone enough to let them struggle, knowing intervention could not solve everything. When Carrie finally achieved sobriety, mother and daughter rebuilt a bond, both personally and creatively. Yet the fear of loss never fully dissipated. Eventually, tragedy struck again when Carrie passed away after years of illness. Carol, in finishing the work they had created together, acted out of necessity and love. This act was less about artistic achievement and more about survival and obligation, a continuation of the lessons instilled during her formative years. Her life had always been about holding space for others while navigating personal loss, and the grief she carried was inseparable from her identity as a performer. 11. Even decades later, Carol continued to surprise audiences by refusing to fade quietly. She took on modern television roles that emphasized restraint over spectacle, proving that her talent was timeless. In shows like Better Call Saul, she demonstrated an ability to command attention through silence and controlled presence, unsettling viewers not through humor, but through sheer authority and intelligence. Her performances were a testament to her lifelong understanding of timing, restraint, and emotional weight. Humor was no longer a shield but a tool, used selectively when necessary. Audiences recognized a transformation. Carol was no longer merely entertaining. She was communicating depth, history, and experience in each subtle gesture. The same instincts that once saved her as a child were now guiding her through the complexities of modern storytelling, highlighting her evolution as an artist and human being. 12. Carol's approach to performing evolved, reflecting her growth and survival. Where once she used humor to navigate life's unpredictability, she later embraced silence, stillness, and the quiet force of presence. This evolution was visible in her later roles, where subtle expressions carried immense weight. Critics praised her work as masterful, while those familiar with her history recognized a deeper truth. Carol had learned to coexist with pain rather than constantly transform it into entertainment. Her discipline and emotional intelligence allowed her to navigate both public and private life without succumbing to the chaos that had once dominated her childhood. This dual mastery of performance and self-preservation was rare, making Carol a uniquely enduring figure in entertainment history. Yet, despite decades of growth, that one 1977 episode remained untouched. Carol never revisited it, not out of fear, but out of respect for what it contained. It represented a moment when comedy intersected with real human vulnerability in a way that left permanent marks. While audiences and critics saw brilliance and courage, Carol understood the full depth of what she had exposed. The episode stood as proof that performance could be dangerous, that truth could be heavier than applause. In choosing never to watch it again, she preserved the integrity of that moment while acknowledging the emotional cost she had paid. For Carol, some doors are meant to remain closed, a recognition that certain truths are more potent when remembered rather than relived. Her life, however, continued to demonstrate resilience, creativity, and a commitment to bringing warmth into the world. Carol's performances, whether comedic or dramatic, reflected decades of lived experience. She never allowed personal grief to erase her presence on stage or screen. Instead, she integrated it subtly into her craft, providing depth that few performers achieve. Even in her 90s, her work reflected precision, timing, and emotional intelligence, showing that mastery does not fade with age. The lessons from her childhood, her struggles with family, and her career all converged, allowing her to maintain authority, control, and empathy simultaneously. Every appearance, every role, became a testament to a life shaped by pain, perseverance, and a deep understanding of the human condition. So, do you think Carol Burnett was right to never revisit that 1977 episode? Or do you believe facing it would bring closure? Her story challenges us to consider the balance between courage and self-preservation. Some moments are so raw, so deeply personal, that even the person who lived them cannot relive them without consequences. Carol's life was about mastering laughter, protecting herself, and navigating pain with grace. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Share your own stories of moments too real to revisit. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to join us for more untold stories from Hollywood's most unforgettable figures, moments that shaped history and hearts alike.